one of the things programmers don't like doing is reinventing the wheel. You know, although, come to think of it, the wheel has had multiple iterations from stone and wood to the modern rubber steel kind of thing we see that has like these fancy grooves for the road. You know what? Okay, we'll just stay with the original metaphor. You don't want to reinvent the wheel a lot of the time, right? We like having the ability to use something that somebody a bit more clever has done, or somebody who put a bit more time and effort into it. Say when we're trying to figure out how to deal with time and leap years and leap seconds. Leap seconds are a thing. But anyway, this chapter is all about working with modules, which are files that contain a bunch of functions and variables that other programs can use. Now, to show you how this works, before we get into the three we're going to focus on, which are Turtle, Math, and Random, I want to just create our own file and show what happens when we import it. So I've created this file called thing to import, which is the thing we're going to be importing. Importing is the act of bringing of basically loading in another Python file's definitions and other things. So here, what we're doing is we're creating two variables, pi and prof name, and I created another file in the same folder called importing test. Now, and that's the file we're going to use to test this all. But thing to import has two variables. Notice that I've capitalized them. This is just to basically tell the user that these are constants, they shouldn't be changed, and that they are basically there as constants as opposed to regular variables. Other programming languages have, like Java, have ways to prevent you from actually touching them, but let's take a look at these variables. So we've got pi and prof name. So let's go ahead and import them into this program. Now, importing means to use them, and this is just I'm trying to basically show you what's going to go on under the hood here. So import, and we say the name of the file of the Python file we want to import. To import thing to import. Okay, we run it and notice that it gives us no errors. If I were to put thing to importee, misspell it, it would give us an error saying that we can't import that module. And again, a module is just a Python file that's intended to be imported. Okay. Now, without this, if we try to print the variable pi, we would get a name error because that variable has not been defined in this file, right? If I were to define pi is equal to 3, I'd no longer get a name error. So let's delete this. Boom. Okay. And let's go ahead and run this and import. And so now we try to print out pi again, and we're still getting a name error saying pi is not defined. And I mean, this defined in this file, and that's exactly right. It's defined in this file, but not this file. So one of the things here is that, there had to be a design choice made with the import statements. And basically, when you're importing somebody else's work, you have no idea what he called the variables. So in general, if you do an import statement like this, if you want to access variables inside of it, like pi, you say thing to import. You say the name of the file you imported, dot, and the variable name you want to use. And as you can see, we can now use that thing to import pi, and then prof name Andrew Rosen. And that's just kind of what goes under the hood when we're working with files. So, let's see here. What else do I want to do? Oh, yes. Right? Print done. Now, again, done. That would have been another name error. Now, if I run this now, we'll get done Andrew Rosen, right? This runs through this file and does all the commands that are in here, and basically loads up. So you could technically break a file into multiple parts, but don't do that; it will be confusing. But these are useful. Now, why would you have such a thing? And the answer is because the idea here is that, there's a lot of different things that you can build with Python. You can do mathematical modeling, and you can do things like build web servers. And the idea here is that each Python program doesn't necessarily need to know how to build a web server. If it's just, asking for your name and telling you some history about it. Instead, it just needs to know what it needs to know. If it's a program to print out the current time, again, it doesn't need to know how to be a web server. It doesn't know how to do mathematical calculations. It just needs the time module. So let's go ahead and see how this works with, say, importing a math module. So the idea here is that math, let's go ahead and, yeah, actually this is fine. The math module, if we import math, it has a bunch of these functions that are defined in Python. Now notice that I've imported math, but if I were to check my folder over here, I don't have a math over here. So the first thing it's going to do when you say import, is that it checks the folder that you're currently in, or wherever you specified based on your import statement. And then if it can't find it there, it checks what's called the standard library. Basically all the stuff that's included in Python. And generally you just want to use the stuff with Python. But when I cover common mistakes that you can make with importing, it's very important. Now, if you've been confused up to now, that's okay. This is where we need to know how to do things. So basically, if you want to use stuff from the math function, we just simply call stuff like, let's figure out what the square root of something is. So print math dot, and the square root function is sqrt of, let's go with the square root of 100. I'll go with that because we know what that is. It's 10, or will be 10.0, and boom. Okay, and here let's go with the square root of 81, which will give us 9.0. And now let's go ahead and get something in between, 9.48. So what's useful is that basically this is included in Python, and you don't know how to, you don't need to know how it calculates the square root. And I'm sure some of you are thinking, wait a second, how would I even go about calculating the square root of something? How do you actually do that for a number like this? If you're curious, look up something called Newton's method. So that is, but your computer knows how to do that, or rather Python knows how to do that, and there's no need for you to know how to do it. You just need to know how to use it. What else is included in math? That's a great question, so let's find out. Math, Python, library. So let's go ahead and look at the docs of Python, and we can look in the standard library and see all the mathematical functions that are provided. So there's a bunch of interesting things here that this provides. It provides the ceiling, right? The smallest integer greater than or equal to x. This is for doing combinatorics over here. N choose k, without repetition and without order. And let's go ahead, factorial. The absolute value of something. Let's go ahead and see. Remainder. Truncate. Oh, exponential function. E raised to the power of x. Logarithms. Log base 2, log base 10. Square root. All your trigonometry functions, which most kind of programs don't need to know how to do trigonometry, right? So there's no need to include that. So there's a whole lot of interesting things that are in here, but you don't necessarily need them for your main program. So importing math gives you the ability to use a lot of these useful mathematical functions.